That one, I'm not worried. Okay.
Good morning. We're getting ready to get started here this morning with our Adams County Beef Show. Appreciate everybody kind of coming out and standing here to get us started this morning. Just be aware of the social distancing. We appreciate that. Not a whole lot for announcements because our show is a lot different here. Just ask that everybody be mindful of each other, be patient, and watch your distances. I think the clean out in the barns, y'all got your word on that your stalls all need to be cleaned before you leave. So let's make sure we do that. Our particular steer show in our barn has always been dedicated to a young man that we lost here about 5 years ago, Adam Ginther. One of his main sayings and the way he tried to live his life was trying to live every day a little bit better. I think especially in the environment, if we could all do that, what a change it would have for us. As we get started here this morning, I guess if you'd all indulge me, maybe join me in a spirit of prayer this morning. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity for us to gather here today. Watch over us as we compete. Help us to be mindful of each other, to help each other. Protect us as exhibitors and our animals. Help us to learn the lessons of life that this program is set to teach. Keep us safe as we head home today. Bless the families, the helpers, and everybody here today. In Jesus' name, amen. Maybe start out with the national anthem, and then we'll turn it over and get the show on the road.
What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and rugged red
Is it on? Yep. Thank you, everybody, for coming this morning. And I'm Brett Ginther. This is my wife, Marge. And we're here to present some scholarships in memory of our son, Adam. We had 3 recipients this year of the scholarships. One, Kenton Bogan, wasn't able to make it today, so we got him his scholarship this week. And we do have today 2 great 4-H members. We have Alexandria Bernhardt and Jaden Stoll. Alexandria is from Brighton, went to Prairie View High School, 4-H member. She showed swine, did a lot of club activities in high school. At Prairie View, she did varsity tennis, student council, National Honor Society, student advisory council. She's very busy. She's on her way to Regis University in Denver to study public administration and public affairs. And we're so happy that you got this scholarship, Alexandria. Congratulations. I want to go ahead and we'll hand those out. And Jaden is from just west of the fairgrounds here. Been a 4-H member for 11 years. He's also from the Good Luck 4-H Club. He's done horses and archery, visual arts in 4-H. And one of the highlights for Jaden was winning the state 4-H working ranch horse division in 2017. Jaden's from goes to school at Brighton High School, or did, recently graduated, played football there and rugby. He's on his way to CSU Pueblo to play football for him, tight end. He's going to study business management at CSU Pueblo, and he's on his way there toward the end of the month. So, Jaden, congratulations, and thank you for applying. We're real happy for you. Thank you, everybody. Each one of the recipients got a $2,000 scholarship this morning, and for the parents that are standing here, it's a live check, so somebody keep track of that thing. Thank you, everybody. Congratulations.
All right, and I have one other quick announcement for you guys. I'll run off. I'm going to ad-lib for a second. I'd like to take a moment to talk about the team that made this happen for you guys today. Being in a similar storm, I know the hours they spent planning, replanning, and worrying that their plans would have to be replanned for the 100th time. The amount of hurdles and roadblocks that they encountered to get to this point, many would have just given up. While I know this might not be the fare that you have always had, it is the fare that thousands of youth do not get to experience. I ask that you take a moment to thank your extension staff for never giving up, which I promise would have been much easier and a whole lot less stressful, and becoming creative to make this happen and always putting you as youth first. I also want you to thank your superintendents, which I realize he'll get mad at me for calling him out, but I do it every year, for also putting the youth first and always asking for how to make this happen versus how this can't happen. So please, when you see them around today, tell them thank you. Those of you in Catch-A-Calf, please make your way to the holding pens. Catch-A-Calf kids to the holding pen.
Good morning, guys. As we kick off the show today here at the Catch a Cavs, a really, really unique experience and an incredible program for these kids. I was very fortunate to get to do the Catch a Cavs show in Denver this year, this past winter, and it's just such a unique program, and I think it teaches these kids a lot in terms of responsibility and how to raise livestock. And from a placing standpoint, I think these top two are awfully close, but I'm going to leave them standing exactly how they are. Young individual up here at the front is going to win this class today, just in terms of muscularity and power. When you study that calf over the top side of his build, out through his hip, and when you get in from behind him, down through his stifle, he's carrying the most shape and dimension from a muscularity standpoint. I think that one, when he gets out and goes, is still plenty good from a structural standpoint, built right in terms of his angles. You know, maybe not as youthful and fresh about his front end and his look up front, but still, again, from a muscularity standpoint and thinking about where that calf's going to go, I think he brings the most good to the table. Young lady here in second, that calf is kind of wanting to throw her fits just a little bit this morning, but I love that one when you get him out and you set him in motion. I think that one's built the best just in terms of the angle to his skeleton, the way his shoulder lays into him, the way he utilizes his hock and his hind leg. He's not built quite as stout and powerful over his top and his loin and out through the upper portion of his hip. And we study him from behind as the steer in front of him. I do think that one becomes close, though, because as he matures, and if he does ever want to lay just more true muscularity down, I think that becomes a closer pair. The young lady that's going to end up here in third, I think that steer is just a little bit further behind today. All of the pieces are there in terms of structure and length and extension. I like how big and square he is out of the upper portion of his hip. He's one that's just a little bit rawer, a little bit greener from a condition standpoint, needs just a little bit more mass and weight and dimension on him today to compete with these other two steers. Let's congratulate these kids.
Placings for the live evaluation for the Catch a Calf class. First went to Michaela Gilbert, second, Taylor Seeley, and third, Abby Bernhardt. I would also like to take a moment to introduce our judge that we have today. It is Ashley Judge, and she lives in Loveland, Colorado. She judged at Redlands Community College and Oklahoma State University. She's a member of the 2014 Reserve National Champion team at OSU and high individual in Louisville. She's assistant coach at OSU for 3 years. She now manages Beatty Livestock, a Simmental and Angus show cattle operation, and owns her own marketing company. Thank you, Ashley. Feeder calves, you need to be making your way to the holding area. Final call for feeder calves to come to the holding area.
Out here in showmanship, three young individuals that are really trying really hard. And I talked about them individually just a little bit in terms of tips and tricks to help them from this point on as they go forward with these animals. Today, the young lady up here at the front is going to be first. Young lady here at the back is going to be second. And the young lady who needs a round of applause for dealing with that steer today and putting up with him, she's going to be third. She's doing an awesome, awesome job. He's just not wanting to be your partner today. So let's congratulate these kids.
Results of the Catch a Calf showmanship. First place, Michaela Gubert. Second, Abby Bernhardt. And third, Taylor Seeley. Currently in the ring now is the feeder class, ranging in weight 753 to 908.
Out here in the feeder steers, obviously a pair of calves that are very, very different in terms of their type and kind and their breed composition. And I think that makes it challenging to decide where do you want to go. But I'm going to side with the young lady here with the Charolais appearing, or Charolais influence steer, to win this class today. I think in terms of genuine shape and muscularity, that one's built with more when you get out on top of him and you study him from behind. He's got just a shot more youthfulness about him for this stage in the game. He's one that, ideally could be picked up and fixed there in terms of his hip structure. I'd like to pick him up in terms of his pins and lengthen him out in the way he's constructed there. You get him out and you set him in motion. I think he handles his shoulder all right. I do wish he was maybe just a little bit better in terms of the flex he has to his hock and his rear pasterns, but still, just in terms of youthfulness and muscularity, I think he has the advantage. The Mini Hereford steer is one that I really, really like in terms of his practical rib shape. He's one that definitely has a lot of foot and bone underneath him, and I think he's one that when you get him out and you set him in motion, definitely handles his hip and his hind leg better than the calf that's going to win this class. But with that, he's one that wants to really deviate in terms of his loin and his top line when you set him in motion. He's a notch too high in terms of his tail head, maybe a shot plainer about his front end, and then when you get in from behind him, just a little bit flatter constructed all the way through. A nice pair of calves, though. Let's congratulate both those kids.
Results of the feeder class: first place was Erica Derby, and second, Julian Johnston. Class 1, Market Steers. You need to make your way to the holding area. Class 1, Market Steers. Final call, Class 1, Market Calves. We are missing one. Final call, Class 1. Alex Thompson, we need you to the holding area. This is Class 1, Market Calves, ranging in weight 1030 to 1085. Class 2, Market Calves, please make your way to the holding area.
Young lady with the Shar steer here at the front is a pretty easy place to start in this class. I think that one really combines a lot of foot and bone and muscularity with still a very attractive show steer look from the side. He's very, very youthful and fresh and attractive in terms of the way all of his pieces are put together. If you're going to be super critical of that one, I'd like to see him maybe get out and go with just a little bit more freedom in the way he sets down off of those rear two. But I think for the weight range that he's at, he handles extremely well. And again, I think a really easy class winner. I think it's awfully close between 2 and 3, but when you really study him, get your hands on him and get in from behind him, the young man here in second, there's just a lot more pin width and natural shape and dimension out through the upper portion of his hip and his stifle in comparison to the steer that's going to stand here in third. I think he's really, really practical in terms of his rib shape. I think he's one that's really sound structured when you get him out and go. He's a little bit plainer about his front end, a little bit shorter in his neck. He doesn't have the extra youthful, attractive show steer look of that calf that wins, but still a very practical, good built type of market steer. Similar story with the young man that's here in third. That's a really practical, sound structured calf that unfortunately is wanting to give him just a few fits today, similar to the calf that stands directly in front of him. But when you get in from behind him and you study him on the top side of his skeleton, he's flatter in the way he hooks up on the back side of his shoulder. He's one that doesn't carry nearly as much power and width down his top and from behind as the steer that's going to stand in second. The young lady that's going to end up rounding out the class is one that I think does have some natural shape and expression, especially when you study him from behind, but he falls out from a balance perspective in terms of the way his skeleton is laid into him. He's rounder in terms of his hip structure. He's shallower and harsher in terms of his forerib and center body. He just really needs more time to drop down and mature from that standpoint. And like I said, structurally speaking, I'd like to square him up front and just change him in terms of his hip structure. Let's congratulate those kids.
Results of Class 1 Market Calves. First place, Emmy Kiefer. Second, Drew Kiefer. Third, Alex Thompson. And fourth was Megan Derby. Coming into the ring next is Class 2 Market Calves, ranging in weight 1185 to 1264. And this will be first call for Class 3 Market Calves to make your way to the holding area.
a really nice class of steers as we get further into this show. And the young lady back here with the black and white steer is wanting to have one that's wanting to give her fits just a little bit more. And so at times it's a little bit harder to get a good read on him, but I think it's awfully close between these two. That being said, the young lady's gold calf is going to win this class today. I'll be the first to admit to you that I'd like to change him in terms of the way he goes out of his hip and his hind leg. It's not ideal for me. It's in terms of the way he swings him outside of himself. But after that, I think he's the one out here that combines power, look, and some extras in terms of show steer look. From the side, he's still very, very good in terms of the way he handles when you get your hands on him. He's one that's definitely correct in terms of his degree of finish. Still youthful enough about his head and his neck and his chest floor. Like I said, I think just in terms from a structural standpoint, his shoulder is really good in him. I just like to tweak him in terms of the way his hip hooks up into his spine and the way he rotates and the way he goes from behind there. The black and white calf, like I said, I think that there's a lot of good in that one. I think he's got a monster back in him. I think he's really, really stout and powerful when you get in from behind him. He's one that's very, very practical and sound structured, from what I can tell at least, in terms of the way he goes. That being said, he's also one that's a little bit lower fronted, a little bit crestier on the top side of his neck. He really wants to deviate there in the center of his back, and maybe just, I guess, from a maturity standpoint, to me, reads like there's just not a whole lot to that one from this point forward in terms of maturity and growth and size. I think, again, he's one that's really hard to get a good read on and really get a good study on because he's just not wanting to cooperate for her today. But I commend her for wanting to get out here and work so hard at it. Young lady that's going to come out here in third, that's another one that's awfully stout and powerful when you get your hands on him. When you study him on the top side of his skeleton, you get him out through the upper portion of his hip. Unfortunately, as tends to happen, while all that extra power and dimension, he's just coarser built all the way through. He's coarser in terms of his shoulder. He's plainer up through his front end. He's one, go ahead, sweetheart, you can start walking. He's one that when you get him out and you set him in motion, I think that he handles his joints pretty well. I like the flexibility he has at the ground, but he really wants to open up and splay out in terms of his shoulder. I'd like to lengthen him out and level him out in terms of his hip structure as well. Young man that's going to come out here in fourth, go ahead, buddy, you can start walking. A really, really practical built steer that when you get your hands on him is definitely good and correct in terms of his degree of finish. One that I think just in this group needs to be built with just a little bit more genuine power and shape to get any higher. He needs to set down softer and more comfortable off of those rear pasterns as well. And then the young man that's going to round out this group with the shorthorn steer, similar story. That one's got a lot of length, a lot of extension. I love how youthful he is. Today, though, he's just given up too much in terms of power and dimension to some of these other steers. He's flatter in terms of his rib cage. He's narrower from behind. I'd like to soften him up in terms of the center portion of his body as well. Let's congratulate those kids.
Results of Class 2, Market Calves. First, Grace Eisenach. Second, Caden Haley Mitchell. Third, Skyla Jones. Fourth, Carson Mason. And fifth, Alexander Culp. Coming into the ring now is Class 3 Market Calves, ranging in weight 1280 to 1340. And this will be first call for Class 4 Market Calves to make your way to the holding area.
probably just a little bit more challenging class to piece together because I think you have a little bit of everything out here. But I think of these top two steers that have some shape and muscularity and still handle correctly. The young lady's Baldy is the one that just handles himself so much better when you set him in motion. He's one that's better in the angle to his shoulder and knee. He's looser in terms of his spine and his hip structure, and much, much looser in terms of the way his hock is constructed, the way he gets out, more closely fills his stride. You know, from a balance perspective, he's maybe carrying just a shot more chest in relation to the center portion of his body and his flank line, and I'd like to soften him up there. But even still, when you get your hands on him, he's got more cover on him than what you think you would have, especially comparison to the steer here in second. The steer here in second has got pieces that I think you have to appreciate. That one's really, really shapely over the top side of his build. He's got a big hip in him. He's very, very expressive, and he's trim, especially when you get over his 12th and 13th. Unfortunately, that steer is just not built with the running gears that he needs to be built with. He's really over in terms of his knee and his shoulder and his front end. You get him out and you set him in motion, and he just doesn't hold his hip and his hind leg together like he needs to. I'd also like to just bust him open in terms of his forerib and his rear flank. But I think in comparison to the steer that we have here in third, in terms of true shape and muscularity, he has the advantage. The steer here in third is one that I definitely appreciate from a structural standpoint, from a practicality standpoint. You know, that one gets out and goes, is so much smoother in terms of his joints, so much more flexible in terms of the way he's constructed at the ground. He's one that just when you get your hands on him, when you study him from every angle, is flatter and narrower in his general build. He doesn't have the big top shape, the extra power and dimension out through his hip as that steer that's going to stand ahead of him. And then the red and white calf that's going to round out this group, he's one that I think probably at one point had a lot of things that you had to gravitate towards in terms of foot and bone width and power and extra body shape. He's just a little too overdone at this point. You get your hands on him, he's carrying quite a bit in terms of his finish and his condition, and then I think that just hinders him from a structural standpoint. He wants to labor off of either end of his skeleton. He's just not sound enough in terms of his general build for me to get him any higher in this group. I think for his extra frame size, he maybe just didn't hold together quite as well. Let's congratulate all those kids.
Results of Class 3 Market Calves. First place, Addie Grilli. Third, Caden Healy Mitchell. Or second, Caden Healy Mitchell. Third, Taylor Seeley. And fourth, Trevor Hermosillo. Coming into the ring now is Class 4 Market Calves, ranging in weight 1363 to 1573. After this class, we will move into the champion drive. So if you had first or second place in classes 1 through 3, you'll need to make your way back to the holding area.
Young man brings a black steer out here that I think, especially in this group, just checks all the boxes in terms of being correct in his degree of finish, being one that is appropriate in terms of the weight range that he's in, having some muscularity, some balance, some youthfulness. He's one that I think you study him. He's good in terms of the angle to his shoulder. It's his hip that I'd like to maybe lengthen and level out in him just ever so slightly. But the shape and size to his foot is good. I think he still gets out and goes with some flexibility and length of stride. And like I said, especially in this group, he's just the one that's right in terms of his weight range, his degree of finish, and that acceptability. The steer that's going to come out here in second has got really, really unique pieces. I don't think that you can make one bigger footed and bigger legged than that calf is. He's got monster legs underneath him. He's one that's really long and attractive, and for the weight that he's at, definitely is not too mature in terms of his degree of finish by any means, but with that, he's definitely more mature about his head and his neck. And I guess for the weight that he's at, I wish he was just softer in terms of the center portion of his body, softer in terms of his flank, and just more accurate and more correct in terms of his degree of finish for this stage in the game. With all that extra foot and bone, he's quite a bit coarser just in terms of his construction as well. But very, very unique pieces in that calf. The black and white steer that's going to come out here in third is one that definitely has a lot of power and dimension to him. He's got a big top. He's really stout and powerful from behind. Again, a similar story in the fact that he's maybe just pushed a little bit too far. He's in the big heavyweight range in that 1500s, and he's struggling just a little bit more from a structural standpoint. He's maybe just a little bit overcooked just in terms of weight and the extras that he's carrying today. And then the gold calf that's going to round out this group is one that I think opposite end of the spectrum, for his weight and where he's at is probably just a little bit on the trimmer side, which I don't think necessarily is a bad thing, but I wish that he maybe just had a little bit more on him in terms of his degree of finish. You set that one into motion. He really wants to get off in terms of the way he goes out of his hip. He's more rigid in terms of the way he sets down off of those rear pasterns. I'd like to soften him up in the center portion of his body as well. Let's congratulate all of them.
Results of Class 4 Market Calves. First place, Wyatt Eisenach. Second, Elizabeth Quick. Third, Gage Hosford. And fourth, Haley Hermosillo. Coming into the ring now will be the champion drive for the Market Division. So out of Class 1, our first place was Emmy Kiefer, steer weighing 1085. Class 2, our first place was Grace Eisenach, calf weighing 1264. Class 3, our first place winner was Addie Grilly, steer weighing 1291. And out of Class 4, our first place was Wyatt Eisenach, steer weighing 1363. Are they bringing in seconds as well? Okay. And again, I'd like to take a moment to thank our judge, Ashley Judge, who lives in Loveland, Colorado. She judged at Redlands Community College and Oklahoma State University. She was a member of the 2014 Reserve National Champion team at OSU and the High Individual in Louisville. She was the assistant coach at OSU for 3 years. She now manages Beatty Livestock, a Simmental and Angus show cattle operation, and owns her own marketing company. Let's go ahead and give Ashley a round of applause for being here with us today.
We get back out here for Champion Drive, and I think we have 4 really nice steers out here that all probably need to be tweaked just a little bit in terms of their structure and the way they get out and go, but they still represent quality cattle in terms of muscularity, correctness of finish, and still having some balance and look about them. I think that you can make some decisions out here, and I think that it's awfully close between a pair of them just in terms of what they bring to the table, especially for the weight that they're at. And a couple of cattle out here, the young lady especially there in the front, I like a lot of things about that steer. I think you just have to decide, is he in that weight range that's acceptable for this stage in the game? So I think all these kids did an awesome job. Before I get off the mic, and I know we have to do showmanship still, I want all of you guys to give a round of applause to the people that are putting this fair on, because I've been to a lot of shows this summer that didn't happen or wouldn't have happened without the people that have worked tirelessly to make this happen for your kids, and it's a lot harder than you think it is. So give them a huge round of applause. They've worked beyond what's probably capable sometimes to make this happen for your kids. Let's give everybody in the ring, outside of the ring, again another round of applause, and I'll go select your champion in reserve.
Your 2020 Grand Champion steer came out of Class 4, belonging to Wyatt Eisenach. Coming into the ring now is the second place out of that class, Elizabeth Quick. No, she was the second place. So they bring in the second out of the grands. Or out of the one that was chosen. The reserve? Yeah. And then your reserve Grand Champion came out of Class 2, belonging to Grace Eisenach. For those of you in showmanship, we will be starting with class 1 at 10:25. So that'll be class 1 seniors will begin at 10:25. Class 1, senior showman. You need to be in the holding area. Class 1, senior showman. And we do have 2 heats of the senior showmanship. So as the first class comes in, Ashley will select her top out of that class and then out of class 2. And then those top individuals will come back in to compete for the actual placings of senior showman. Class 2, senior showman, make your way to the holding pen. Class 2, senior showman.
As these three young individuals exit the ring, they're going to make it back to the final drive here in senior showmanship. I talked to these other two individuals about just little tiny things in terms of feet placement and walking their animals into it just a little bit more, but I thought everybody did a good job. Let's congratulate them.
Coming into the ring next is Class 2 of the Senior Showman. And again, Ashley will go ahead and select her top end out of this class to compete against the three other individuals just selected. Let's go ahead and give the two individuals exiting the ring a round of applause. Coming back in now will be the placings of our senior beef showmanship. So we have 3 individuals from class 1 coming back in and 3 individuals from class 2. And she will go ahead and place these exhibitors. This will be first call for the intermediate beef showman to make your ring to the holding area, to make your way to the holding area. First call for intermediate beef showman.
It's a really good group of senior showmen, and all 6 of you guys should be very, very proud of yourself, because I thought these top 3 young ladies did an incredible job, not just when they get back out here in showmanship, but all the way through. And I think that it's awfully close between 2 and 3, but to me, there's one showman that all the way through did the best job all day when she came back out here in showmanship, just in terms of feet placement, ring presence, how calm, cool, collected she is. Young lady up here at the front is going to be your champion senior showman today. Again, just did an incredible job of walking that calf into it every single time. You can tell that she spent a lot of time with that guy at home. They work together extremely well. She's very, very methodical in terms of everything that she does. Young lady standing directly behind her is going to be second today. Again, round of applause for her. Just did an awesome job with that steer, and he comes back out here and he's not wanting to just walk this great for her, but she didn't let that bother her. She came out here, she got that steer stuck. Again, another one you can tell she spends a lot of time with that one at home. Young lady here at the black and white steer is going to be third today, and I commend you, hun, because that one's not an easy one to show. He doesn't want his front end to stay in him. He's not the easiest, and I think that you handled it extremely, extremely well. For me, I wish you'd get out to the front of that steer just a little bit more. Don't hide yourself behind his head. Get out to the front of him. Get out to the front of him, because I think that makes him look better, even because it highlights him just a little bit more, and it gets you out in the front of that steer. But I thought you did a really nice job. The next 3 young ladies, again, really nice job just in terms of feet placement. A couple of times maybe just weren't quite as right or quite as perfect as those 3 young ladies here at the top end of this class. Let's congratulate all those kids.
Results of your senior showmanship. First place, Emmy Kiefer. Second, Elizabeth Quick. Third, Caden Healy Mitchell. Fourth, Skyla Jones. Fifth, Grace Eisenach. And sixth was Abby Bernhardt. Coming into the ring now is intermediate beef showmanship. Juniors, if you can begin making your way to the holding area. Exhibitors, as you finish up today, please remember that you do need to clean out your stalls. And so if you were in a stall, make sure that's clean, and then clean up the area around your trailer as well if you worked out of there. And also, I know I mentioned it this morning, and Ashley mentioned it as well during the grand drive of the market. Please be sure to tell the people thank you who made this possible today. I would also like to thank our ring help that we've had today. We have Bryce Schnug and Sydney Bowman in the ring, and then we have Kim Bowman, who has been checking everybody in. Thank all of you guys. Okay. I usually have We also want to thank our judge today again, who is Ashley. She lives in Loveland, Colorado. She judged at Redlands Community College and Oklahoma State University. She's a member of the 2014 Reserve National Champion team at OSU and the High Individual in Louisville. She was the assistant coach at OSU for 3 years. She now manages Beatty Livestock, a Simmental and Angus show cattle operation, and owns her own marketing company.
Another really good group of showmen out here, and I think that it's close between 2 and 3, but the young lady here at the Black Steer, she's going to win your intermediate showmanship today. Let's give her a really nice round of applause. Out here, just in terms of feet placement and having that steer with some split on his back legs, getting to the front of that calf, having some intensity and some ring presence, I thought she easily did the best job out here. She works really, really well with that steer, and again, you can tell she spends a lot of time with it at home. Give her another round of applause. Young man up here at the front is going to be second today. You know, when they first came out here, I really liked how well he worked with that steer. He's wanting to just not cooperate with him quite as well here towards the end. And so feet placement a couple of times is why he's down here in the second spot. But again, I can tell that he really, really has spent a lot of time with that steer at home. That steer works really well, leads really well for him, and they have a really, really good rhythm. Similar story with the young lady that's going to be down here in third. That gold steer, again, she does a really nice job of getting him out here, getting him walked, getting him moved. Again, feet placement a couple of times just in terms of splitting those legs, those back legs just a little bit more. And then here towards the end, he just kind of wanted to spin around on you a couple times and just kind of giving out on you, but you did a really nice job. And I talked to the two young men down here in 4th and 5th about little tiny tips and tricks about, just in terms of how you hold the halter and things like that. But a really good group of kids. Let's congratulate all of them.
Results of intermediate beef showmanship. First place, Taylor Seeley. Second, Drew Kiefer. Third, Haley Hermosillo. Fourth, Alexander Culp. And fifth with Alex Thompson. Coming into the ring now is junior beef showmanship. Exhibitors with breeding animals. Be thinking about bringing them over to the holding area. We'll have you bring everything over at the same time. So those in breeding, be making your way to the holding area.
Another really, really good group of kids, and we've got two young ladies over here that are very, very competitive at the top end. That being said, the young lady with the Charolais heifer just matches my type and kind of showman. She's going to be your champion today. Give her a round of applause. She reminds me so much of my sister. My sister always growing up, she always had this intensity, this look on her face like, I'm going to kill you if you don't use me today, and I love it. I like the competitiveness. I like the intensity. She works awesome with that heifer, gets her set up extremely well, has a lot of poise and tenacity out here in the show ring. Young lady that's going to be here in second, that heifer maybe just doesn't want to cooperate with her quite as well, but she does a really good job of getting her out here, focusing on getting her feet right, making sure her feet placement are exactly where they need to be. And again, even though that heifer maybe just doesn't want to be your friend right now, you can tell that she knows what she's doing and has spent a lot of time in the show ring and at home with her animals. I talked to both the young men here at the bottom end of the group about just little tiny things in terms of feet placement and making sure they're very, very aware of where they are in the ring in relation to everybody else, so they can make sure they get those animals stopped in time. So let's congratulate all those kids as they exit the ring.
Results of the junior showmanship. First, Taya Winden. Second, Addie Garilli. Third, Gage Hosford. And fourth was Carson Mason. We will now move on to the breeding division. We have 2 entries in 2 separate classes. So our first class is the junior yearling heifer. This is actually our senior heifer calf coming into the ring. Good thing we don't fire volunteers. As we get into the heifer show, young lady brings her October heifer out here, and I think that there's a lot of good in that one, and more so a lot of future. I think that she's super feminine and attractive about her front end, super long-bodied and level in the way she's constructed, really, really sound when you get her and you study her in terms of the angle to her shoulder, the looseness to her spine, the flexibility she has there. She's obviously young and green and very immature at this stage in the game, and so I would like to see her maybe just a little bit softer in terms of her rib cage, but I think that'll come with time. She could have a shot more foot and bone underneath her as well, but a really nice single entry for this young lady. Give her a round of applause. First place in our senior heifer calf went to Addie Garilli. Coming in now is the junior yearling heifer. And then after this, we will have champion in reserve.
Young lady brings a really moderate cowie type of a female out here that I think you have to like a lot of pieces about her, just in terms of the shape to the center portion of her body and how well she still balances. Still very feminine and attractive from her shoulder forward. I love the extra foot and bone she has underneath her, the shape and size to her foot, and I really, really appreciate the way she sets down at the surface with so much comfort and flexibility there off of those rear pasterns. She's maybe just a shot deeper in the way that her chest lays into her in comparison to her forerib, but again, that's being awfully, awfully critical of a female that does a lot of good things. Give her a round of applause. Okay, hon, you just stay right there.
Results of the junior yearling heifer. First place went to Taya Winden. We will now have champion and reserve champion heifer. And again, exhibitors, please be sure that you're cleaning out your stall and the area where you got ready, whether it was out by the trailer or in the barns. And I'd like to thank our judge again, Ashley Judge, for coming out and spending the morning with us.
As this young lady brings her heifer back in, we just have the two for champion and reserve. And I think, there's definitely some differences just in type and kind and obviously maturity pattern. I like a lot of things about both of them. That being said, I think there's just enough more quality in the young lady's Charlet influenced heifer. She's going to be your champion today. Young lady's black heifer is going to be reserve. Let's congratulate these girls.
Champion heifer went to Taya Winden, and reserve champion went to Addie Garilli. That does wrap up the 2020 Adams County Beef Show this morning. Again, thank you to our judge, Ashley Judge, to our ring help, Kim and Sydney Bowman, and Bryce Snug, Superintendent Stephen Michelle Sturkle, and all of the extension staff for making this possible today for the kids.